Go.
Okay, students, welcome back. A to Z haircutting, cosmetology. Before I get started on this cut, this is the zero elevation again. You've got two other videos that you can watch on the same cut. The other two videos are very, very detailed on the head form, because those are the terms I'm going to use right now. If you don't know where you're at, how do you know where you're going? All right, after a while it becomes natural, but you've got to know where you're at to create the finished cut, the finished look that you want. So the first video is, let me lean back, A to Z Cosmetology Zero Elevation. You can look that one up. It goes into extreme detail about all the different parts of the head. The question mark that you make, the number one, the number two. I mean, it spends a lot of time with that before it gets into the zero haircut. The second one does the same thing. What I want you to understand about this cut is traveling around it. You're going to see so many videos where they bring it straight back, but yet when they show you the finished look, it's perfectly done around. They fixed it. I don't want you to do it where you're wondering, why did it work for them and not for me? I want you to know the whys, why those things happen. So I'm just going to do the cut. I'm going to be doing two cuts today. The next video, the second one that you could watch, Zero Elevation Haircut A. Previously we were just doing haircut videos. Then school started, then the pandemic hit, and I thought, okay, I've got to do videos for students. So then we called it A to Z Cosmetology. This one is Haircut A. It's got a number on it that says 06/22/20. That's the day that it was done. And it's haircutting A to Z. All right, haircut A. That means that's the first haircut. We were going to number them, and we did. On some of them, you'll see some of our other videos where they're numbered from from A, B, C, D, E, F. I think we got up to F on it. And then we were going to get into clipper cutting, but then school started, so I had to move back over here, pay more attention to my students. This haircut is just going to be the cut. You should know the terms by now. If you watch these two videos, if you've been practicing the head form that I sent you, that I gave you, with all the definitions, all the markings, you'll know where you're at. We're both going to be speaking the exact same language. So this one is going to be, this third video on the zero haircut. It's going to be zero elevation haircut, and we're also going to do the V haircut. The book calls that one the graduated haircut, but the result ends up being a V in the back. This hair, it isn't long enough to create a true V, especially since we're going to bring it across, but you'll have a pretty good idea, and I'm going to show you some whys. What can happen? Why did that happen? How do I need to make it right? All right? So if you know exactly where that nape line is at, and you see my finger just went right to it. It's from the tip of the ear, right at the area behind the ear, and it slides down and becomes kind of a happy face. I know that's not a very clean line because I did it with my thumb, but yeah, I can do it over and over and over again, over and over and over again, and it ends up doing the same thing. I'm not directing it. I'm placing my finger, my index finger, just as you would on your own head. Index finger, don't direct it. Just let it slide, and it automatically goes down around that nape line. The pie shape, or the triangle shape that I'm going to make right now, is right at the end of that nape line. I'm not going to take it all the way to the area behind the ear. You can see that I left that out a bit, and I'm going to bring it over. Okay? I don't want to get in front of the camera, so I'm going to get on the other side to do this. Same thing. Right there. And I leave a small spot as well on the other side. All right, so when we do the zero elevation haircut, you've got your center part, you've got a little bit left on each side. I'm going to wet it down and always kind of re-wet the top. This is a little bit different mannequin than you guys have. It's a little bit, the hair's thicker, but I've got these stringy ends that you have. I'm looking for my shear. And we're going to be cutting in the primary position. Now, one of these videos shows you the way that the video is from the book. When they hold the hair out, they actually do it in this form. They bend it and they do it in the primary position. In other words, palm to palm is what that's called. So what happens there, and you can already see it, makes it curl up. Well, at the end of the video, they've got it all flat ironed and it looks perfectly fine. What you do with this cut, we're going to take that very center section, because you never go farther than the first 2 knuckles on your index finger to cut. You see that? First 2 knuckles right there. So I'm going to take this section, leave a little bit out, take this section, and before I cut, I want to look at it. Are we straight there and are we straight there? In other words, we don't have it coming to the center because that's no longer straight. We want to bring it straight down, and I'm only going to take off 1 inch. This looks a lot like your own mannequins with just those little furry things on the bottom. So 1 inch, your comb also tells you what 1 inch is. If you look at, say again?
Can't see it.
Oh, sorry, my cameraman tells me. Okay, your comb should be numbered where it shows 1 inch. These are special order combs that I got for my salon, so they don't have it on there. But 1 inch is also from that very first knuckle right there up to the tip of your finger. That is 1 inch. So it's simple enough for you to figure that out. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to bring it all the way down. I've made sure I'm looking at it. I'm going to stand off to the side. Now remember, when I'm doing it cockeyed, it's a little bit different. Usually I'm standing directly behind. You always try and stand in front of what you're cutting. So if I was standing in front of it, I would be like this and you wouldn't see anything. So I'm standing off to the side, but I made sure that was straight, this is straight. Secondary position, not primary, secondary. And I'm going to come, can you see all right, cameraman? Do I need to change anything before I cut?
That's okay.
All right, so took it straight across. So now I have a guide on this side and on this side. See, I had to bend my fingers a little bit. So those are all little variables. Your fingers should stay straight when you bring it across. This last haircut here becomes a guide for this side. This last haircut here becomes a guide for this side. Now, instead of just cutting that little bit, I'm going to go ahead and carve up about I'd say it's about 1 inch. So subsection, that's what that is. This is a section, this is a subsection that I just took off. Now, you noticed here I was with my fingers at the center nape. I was with my fingers straight down into that center nape. Now that I'm traveling down to the area behind the ear where all those little cowlicks here, that's the only reason we recognize that, is because of the cowlicks, and it's something that you need to be aware of when you're cutting. So now I've gone from this motion to this motion. I'm traveling around the head. This is what I was trying to show you yesterday on in class. So I've got that very last haircut right there. Want to make sure. Only that last haircut. I don't want to bring the middle over because when hair travels, it becomes longer. Before I cut, I'm going to make sure that is straight and that is straight. The only position that has changed is my fingers, pointing now into that half circle. I'm going to take my shear, again, secondary position. I know you probably can't see it, but there's a little hair right there. That's my guide line, okay? I'm going to come over to the other side, and I'm going to do the same thing. Take off about 1 inch right there. And again, now this time, remember my fingers were pointing towards the center? I'm taking that last haircut, and now I'm pointing my fingers towards the face. So that's the difference. Center to front, or front to center. When you go across, you're going to create one area longer than the other. we're even. Let me be absolutely sure. Not just a scotch. There. Okay, but you notice my fingers are now pointed in that direction. First this, then this. All right, so now I'm going to take off section at a time, 1 inch section. Now I want you to be aware when I find it, I'm going to bring my mannequin head. You notice it's tilted forward a bit. Now that I've gotten that guide, I'm going to bring it straight up. And if you have to sit down to do this so that you can see the bottom of the head, do it. Like I told you, when you've got somebody with really long hair that comes in, you may have to sit down. All right, I'm going to wet it. I'm going to bring it, now I'm going to come back to the center here. Now my fingers again, you've got just one little hair to cut right there. And then now my fingers travel around. Make sure I've got something to cut here. Because there was very, very little that I had to cut. And I may run out of hair before I even get up to the mid area. So what I'm going to do for you so that you can see a little more, so that you have a very good idea as far as how to travel up with it, because I've already run out of hair and I do want you to get an idea on the sides. So you've gotten the gist of it. Start at the very center nape, travel towards the face, behind the ear on the right side, away from the face, towards the face on the right, on the left side, away from the face on the right side, where you're standing. Right here, we're traveling. See, this is part. See how the comb is angled? So that's the angle that you're going to hold your shear. Same way. See how the comb is angled? That's the angle that you're going to hold your shear. So what I'm going to do for you, I'm going to take off a couple inches so we can travel up a little bit higher. Just for you to see it. Do not do that with your mannequin. I want you to practice the procedure first. You will be cutting your mannequin shorter. So don't be concerned about that. So I'm going to turn her just a bit so I can get this center again. I'm going to take off a couple inches. Okay, let me make sure I'm at the center nape. Here we are. Okay. So I don't want to confuse you. Straight, straight before I cut. Make sure that those hairs are straight. Take off a couple inches. Now I'm going to step over here. This is straight from where it's growing, straight down. All right, I'm going to come over to this side, take off another subsection, forgive my back. Okay, students, let me wet that so it's equally moist. Wet hair stretches, dry hair does not. It does have the ability to stretch somewhat, but not a whole lot. Okay, so you can kind of see the guide underneath. If you can't see those hairs underneath that are cut, don't cut. You've got too much hair coming down. Now, do you see now where this hair at the center is my guide? So I can see it underneath. This becomes a new guide because this has not been cut yet. See, this travels over. That's what I want to show you. So your guide is still going to travel down until you get to a certain point. So I'm going to bring this down, making sure again that it's all straight in the direction that it grows. Now I'm off to the side, my fingers are pointing forward. And you can see that that's pretty straight. I want to show you something. I'm going to show you something real quick. I'm just going to take off just a little bit more, and I'm going to show you why we don't do it palm to palm. You can see that hard line. That's called the hard line, where you can see a good solid line. Now watch what happens when I roll it forward and then I cut the ends. It's no longer a hard line. Do you see those broken lines? So you can see this is a solid hard line. Now this has become broken. Okay, I'm not going to do it palm to palm. I'm going to go ahead and clean that up one more time. Doing it secondary position. Now there's a hard line again. so it doesn't break up. You have a good solid fall. With fine hair, that's what you want to do. With thick hair, you want to roll it to give it a little bit of lightness to it. They have thick, heavy hair. They want it lighter. So that's one way that you're going to do both. You're learning two things right now on the whys. So it's not that I don't want to cut it the way they do in the book, but on certain types of heads, you're going to make a difference. And this is when they come to you and you solve their problems. That's what you want. You want to be able to give them what they want, and then that is part of your knowledge as well. So I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to cut it straight down again. And again, you see my fingers. And I'm traveling around. And travel around. Okay, I'm going to drop a little bit more because I'm pretty sure I'm going to run out of hair to cut. And yeah, pretty much. So I'm just going to drop it all down because this is pretty layered. So I've just got a tiny bit to cut right there. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this. But what I want you to see is how you're going to add the sides to it. So I'm going to drop it all down. And you see that there's not much. So I'm going to wet it, and you see those little frayed ends right there, and you see our hard line underneath. Make sure you have an apron on when you're cutting, because even with this mannequin hair, this is real human hair that's on the mannequin. So when you're cutting, it's going to get on you, and you're going to itch like crazy. So make sure that you wear your aprons. Okay, I think you get a better visual now. You can see the hard line underneath, and then you see these little ends that are coming out, because we've pretty much run out of hair. So what I'm going to do now, again, I'm going to start at the center. There's my guide. I want you to see that. I'm going to take it out like this so you can see it. That's my guide underneath now. So it becomes simple. You just follow that. Don't change it. All right, so I'm going to bring this down to the center. Again, this is straight. Oops, get my fingers down. Got my fingers in too far. And now I'm traveling around, and you can see as I travel around, this comes straight down. It does not go back. It's not going to travel back. It's going to come straight down. So I'm going to do the top real quick, or not the top, the sides. So you see where I could take off more length, because now I don't have anything to cut. This hair right here, right at the corner, right where the head curves, just between the occipital and the flat part of the head. You've got this one spot right here. All right, if you bring it straight down, now because this is flat, you're going to go flat with it and come across. So that you can see it, I'm going to take it even shorter so that you can get a good visual on what's supposed to happen there. This mannequin is going to be used later on for, it's going to be used later on. Let me change the direction here because I put it so to suit myself, and I need to put it to suit you. So I'm going to righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. All right. Again, center back. Oh, see how she's a little bit crooked? See, and I can't see it when I'm trying to work a little crooked myself. Okay, that's better. All right, so I'm going to bring it down, straight down from the center, from that, even from the center vertex. All right, I'm going to take off another couple inches, but see, this hair is straight, straight, center back. And only to where the head starts rounding out. Now I'm going to come over and travel with it. And I hope you can see. I'm going to put my elbow down for you to see. And again, now I'm at the side. And I'm not going to take it up any shorter because we're going to need this mannequin. So I'm going to cut this. I hope you can see under my arm there. And now we've got this pretty much straight line. This is a little bit shorter. I'm not taking it shorter, basically because I want you to see the rest of the cut. So I'm going to bring her straight up again. And the gist that you're getting from this is learning how to travel around the head form. All right, there we go. Now see, my fingers are pointing now towards the face, following my guide. Good solid hard line right there. And I'm at the side of the head. Do you see that? So this now continues to travel horizontal there, diagonal, slightly diagonal, and then horizontal again on the flat part of the head. All right. And all I'm going to take off, let me wet this. Can you see okay, cameraman? Am I standing in front too much?
No.
Okay. Let me loosen this up so I can make this straight. And that's what you got to watch. You've got to watch that with your client. You've got to watch it with your mannequin. Do not take this much off. All I want you to overall is to take off 3 inches. Learn the procedure, because what I'm going to be asking you in class, tell me what steps you took. What steps did you take? Okay, I got just a few little scragglers there. And let's see. Yep, we're even. Are you straight, mannequin? Let's make sure she's straight so we can make sure she's even. Yeah. And like I said, it makes it hard to do this. We got a couple of little, just little hang things there. But you can see that she is pretty even. Now, if for some reason you're slightly longer on the one side, does this look a little bit longer to you than this side? Okay? It does, doesn't it? Don't cut here to make it even. Turn your mannequin around. Where you're going to find your error is right here. Because we travel in this form and then in this form. Is that a corner? Yes, it is. So I'm going to shift my mannequin forward, as soon as I can get this to move forward. And I'm going to comb this right at that area, right here, straight down into it. And there's a slight, I don't know whether you can see it or not, corner. So I'm going to take it, and that's because we went from this direction. Turning the corner makes all the difference in the world. And you're going to find that even though I just took a little bit off there, when I travel, it's going to take a little more, and there it is. There it is. Do you see this hair and see the variable? So don't cut it shorter. Make sure your shear is straight as you do it, even if you just take off a tiny bit, but you're going to see that your variable was right there. Now it looks pretty even on both sides. I hope. I can't tell because I'm standing too close to it, but I think it does. Yeah, it does. There you go. All right, so what I'm going to do now, we're going to part it down the center. What we would do, now this is, you know this isn't going to reach. You know when I bring this down, you've already followed the steps. Same steps. You would part it down the center. It's called dropping the hair to its natural fall. And we're going to drop this hair down to its natural fall. So if that's the case, I'm going to part it down the center. We know it's not going to reach. We've got a nice slight layer there because this is the next haircut. After you learn the V or the graduated, and you're going to learn how to do an A-line, and then we do a different haircut. Most of the haircuts, okay, straight up. It's kind of like your mannequin stand that you're going to get someday. The ones that you have right now, you turn that little thing on the just underneath the neck. Okay, so now we've got a center part. That is the natural fall. We have nothing to cut because this is way too short. If it was, I would then start from the back again, let it fall down from the upper ridge next to the apex, because that seems to be the natural parting of the hair. What happens at the parietal line, that's where you have your vertex, that's where you're going to have your cowlicks with a real person. These then become variables on what you do with short hair. Longer hair, you can also control it. And I'll be showing you that in due time, not right now. For that you would need your texture shear. So then what I would do is I would take it from the parietal line. Okay, there's your parietal line. See, if you know where it's at, there's the upper ridge. That's the parietal line. So you automatically develop an eye for it. So if the upper ridge is there, the parietal line is there, that's where your cowlicks are. Look at your family's hair. Try and determine where that's at on the back of the head. Practice on real heads, all right? So we're going to bring this from the center straight down, and I would see if there was anything that needed to be cut. I would then travel over, bring it straight down, see if there was anything that needed to be cut. And so you see how I'm traveling around the head as I'm doing this. I'm not pulling it over, because if you pull it over when hair travels, that would be slightly longer, and we would have a slight A-line. That's where they get it. That's how they create that shorter back, longer front. They bring everything to the back to create that. All right? So the other factor would be that they show on the video, and I show it on one of these too, where they comb it back and then bring it down to cut. Well, what did I say about when hair travels? It gets longer. What would end up happening with that is you'd end up with a corner right at the front. However, and when you brought it down, it would be slightly longer. It would bevel down just a bit. So those are factors in hair cutting. I think we're going to probably have to do our graduated haircut on our next video. Because we're running out of time now, just in covering everything that we did with this one. So we're going to move on to the graduated haircut, do it again on the next video, and there's variables on how to do it. All right? The graduated haircut, everything is brought forward, and what happens with this hair, if it comes forward and is all cut right at this area, where's it longer? At the center. If you cut it straight up and down, you're going to get a V. If you cut it horizontally, you're going to get slightly rounded. Where you're going to have a variable when you do that cut to bring everything forward to cut it straight down, right at the frontal area. Frontal area, right here is where you're going to bring it. You determine your length from that. Where do you want your layers to start will determine how far away from the head you take it. But this is also going to travel over, so when it comes back, where you're going to have a variable, again, this corner. When you comb the hair down, you're going to see a little bit of hair come out. That's what the stylist is doing. When they're checking for that, then they clean it up. So right now, we're going to move on. I'll get the other video for you to see it. We'll explain it again. Take care.